Hello everyone, I'm Brazen Eagle, and thank you for joining me here. So today, we have two articles from Breitbart detailing information about good old countries such as Sweden and Germany. So, let's talk about Sweden first. Bombings and explosions up 45% in 2019. Guess they're having a lot of kaboom issues. Swedish police say that the number of explosive incidents and bombings in Sweden from January to July has increased 45% compared to the same period in 2018. Statistics released by the police show that Sweden saw a total of 83 explosive incidents during the period from January to July, a number that has increased to 120 this year. Wow. Swedish newspaper Dagens Nyheter reports. Last year saw the total of 157 explosions across the country according to Dagens Nyheter, but the actual numbers are somewhat unclear, with other groups such as the Crime Prevention Council BRA reporting 108 claims of general destruction by an explosion in 2018. The National Forensic Center, which also investigates explosive incidents, sets the number of cases in 2018 at 255 and 196 so far this year. Wow. NFC statistics show a steady increase in cases year on year, with only 93 cases occurring in 2013. While the exact numbers differ, all of the organizations agree that 2019 has seen a rise in explosions and bombings. Criminologist Sven Graneth commented on the explosion, saying, "Yes, unfortunately, it has increased. Why, we do not know. This may be due to the increase in gun violence at the national level. In individual locations, there may be one or more conflicts between criminal networks, but it is very difficult to know." Graneth also noted that investigators never know for certain where the materials used in the explosions come from, saying, "You can only really speculate. It may be stolen from a building site and sold, or maybe even smuggled in." Police say that the nature of explosives has also changed in recent years. In prior years, hand grenades, often from the Balkan region, who doesn't love the Balkans, were more common, but now explosives like dynamite were becoming more and more common and increasingly stolen from construction sites. Petra Stenkula, head of investigations at the South Police Department working against serious organized crime, told Dagens Nyheter that the explosions are likely linked to organized crime and could be increasing due to stricter firearms legislation. In a way, it might be less difficult to place a bomb than to murder someone with firearms, Stenkula said. The southern multicultural city, don't you love multiculturalism? The city of Malmö has seen a particularly high number of explosions cases in the last several years, with 58 cases in 2017, 45 last year, and 23 so far in 2019. Earlier this year, the city saw 3 explosions in the span of just 24 hours. So far, no one in Malmö has been killed by an explosion since 2017, but 8 people have been injured as a result of blasts, including a young girl who was injured this year by shards of glass while just sleeping at her home. Don't you hate it when you're just trying to sleep at home and then a bomb goes off? It's very, very unfortunate. So, even though, yes, we do have the occasional shooting in the United States, there are a rising number of bombings going on in Sweden. Now, there's no one to point fingers at to blame, at least from the data that we have so far, but I'm sure we all have our opinions here. But regardless, in 2018 alone, there were 157 explosions across the country, and that dynamite, of all things, dynamite, is becoming more common than hand grenades from the Balkans. It's interesting to note that the head of investigations at the South Police Department in Sweden linked this to organized crime and could be increasing because of the greater restrictions on firearms. It's almost as if someone wants to kill you, then they will find a way no matter what. It might not be the gun's fault if someone wants to kill you. But now, like I said, this article doesn't really blame any particular group, but it's interesting to see how Sweden is evolving, we'll say, as the nation becomes more multicultural, like Germany. Now it's time, of course, for the Germans. Over or about a quarter of Germans now come from migrant backgrounds. Interesting. The number of migrant background residents in Germany has reached a new all-time high at 25.5% of the population, and a significant 42% of young children in Germany are of migrant backgrounds. The new statistics come from a report released by the German Federal Statistical Office this week, which states there are now 20.8 million German residents who come from migrant backgrounds, defined by having at least one parent born overseas, Kronenzeitung reports. Of those 20.8 million, just over half, or 52%, hold a German passport, with the other 48% being citizens of foreign countries. The report states that 13.5 million German residents are immigrants, and found that the main motivation for moving to the country, which was seen in 48% of cases, was family reunification, also known as chain migration. A further 19% say they moved to Germany for employment reasons, while 15% had come to the country as asylum seekers. Just 5% said they were in Germany as part of their education. The vast majority of migrants who came to Germany to live with family, 72%, were from another European country, while around half of the asylum seekers were from the Middle East region. The figures mark a large increase in migrant background residents since last year, when the Statistical Office reported that there were 19.3 million residents with a migration background. While mass migration has been a major factor in the rapid demographic changes in Germany, hundreds of thousands of Germans also move overseas each year. In 2017 alone, about 250,000 of Germans moved abroad, which, out of a population of 80 million, it's not a huge percentage of your country leaving. Several German cities have seen major demographical shifts, with Frankfurt becoming the first German city where native Germans are now a minority, or at least a minority since 2017. Frankfurt is joined by the cities of Offenbach, Heilbronn, Sindelfingen, and Pforzheim, which also have native Germans as a minority. In Offenbach, only 37% of the population are native Germans. Wow. Several other major German cities are trending towards natives becoming a minority as well, such as Nuremberg, where migrant background residents make up almost 45% of the population, Stuttgart, where they make up 44% of the population, and Munich with 43%. However, when breaking the figures down by age bracket, 60% of the under 18s in Stuttgart come from a migrant background, illustrating the future demographic of the city. When age groups are taken into consideration across Western Germany, the figures reveal that at least 42% of children under the age of 6 have a migrant background. Very interesting, but it's basically stuff that we already knew. Very unfortunate. Over a quarter of the entire population of Germany is now of a migrant background. I'm not saying that's bad, I'm not saying that's great, but it's very, very surprising. Well, actually not really surprising at all. It's basically what we all thought of. Now, migrants, they said a lot of the migrants came from Europe. I'm sure a lot of them come from Poland. Probably a good chunk come from the Balkans. Some from Italy, Spain, and Portugal as well. And of course you have a huge chunk from the Middle East. But, what's happening over in Germany, basically the same thing's happening over here in the United States as well. In Western Germany, of course, it said close to half of the children under the age of 6 are not native Germans. It's very similar to the US, in which there are more minority babies being born than native babies, we'll say. So, it's just similar trends are trending in Western nations. Now, I'm sure some of these migrants are not bad. Some of them can be great, I'm sure. But, like in the US, many of these migrant background people and children, they really won't assimilate into German or American culture. How do I know this? Well, it's because I see it in the classroom. When children go to school and learn to speak English in the United States, that doesn't mean they're becoming assimilated and becoming Americans. They're just learning the English language, but unfortunately are still keeping most of their own culture. Now, I'm sure a few are completely assimilating, very few, but like I said, not many of them are. And I'm sure the same thing is happening in Germany and, of course, all over Europe. At least all over, mostly, Western developed Europe. It's also very interesting to note that quite a few German cities are becoming un-German. Frankfurt, Offenbach, Heilbronn, Sindelfingen, and Pforzheim are all cities that are actually now have, or getting close to, a native population that is considered a minority. Germans should now be considered, though, they should be considered a protected class in their own cities and towns, but of course, they're not going to be granted minority status. that doesn't fit the narrative. In Offenbach alone, a little more than a third of the population are actually Germans or native Germans. Wow. And of course, it isn't much better in southern Germany, in Bavaria or Baden-Württemberg. Nuremberg, Stuttgart, or Munich are all quickly becoming un-Germaned. And of course, within the next few decades, Stuttgart will be completely un-German. They might speak German there, but they won't be culturally German. Regardless, though, it's very fascinating to see a country that 80 years ago wanted to cleanse a continent of supposed Untermensch become a country that is quickly infested with non-native Germans. But you know what? Like Germany, the United States is also facing mostly the same problems. Anyways, I just wanted to share both of these articles with you, this information, just because it serves as a reminder that while there are issues going on in the mainstream media that they want you to hear and pay attention to, there are, of course, other things going on in the world that are not really getting reported, and unfortunately, everything, or at least most things, are connected one way or another. With that in mind, thank you very much for watching. I'm Brazen Eagle, and I hope you have a great day.